Hey everybody, what is up? It is Berlin. Welcome back to my channel. Hi, how are you doing? Yes, okay, now I don't normally look like this when I want to come on YouTube and make a video, but today this video isn't going to be about makeup. It isn't going to be about, tea or drama. This is a little bit of a different video that I'm bringing you today because of all the discourse surrounding abortion rights and all of that is going on in America right now. This is a bit of a different video. It's going to be a little bit of a conversation, hopefully a little bit educational. It's a bit of a mixed one, but it's something that I want to come and talk about on my kind of limited platform here because it's something that's important and it's something that I feel needs to be talked about. I'm going to share my views, my opinions a little bit as well, and I think that it's just something that's kind of been missing from the space where we've had the discussions about abortion rights from other YouTubers. So hopefully this will shed some light on a few things for you and hopefully you can learn something from it. Anyway, let's get on with the video. So as we all know, Roe V Wade has recently been overturned, meaning that abortion will become illegal in 13 states in America. Now, of course, everybody who's talking about this, for the most part, I'm not going to say it's absolutely everybody, but people who are talking about this, for the most part, I'm going to say they're all saying that it's women's rights being taken away. And there actually really isn't many people at all looking at this as a human rights issue rather than just a women's rights issue. So what I want to shed a little bit of light on today is the fact that transgender men also require abortions and that we need to really look at our language that we're using when we discuss this topic. First things first, I'm going to talk about reproductive organs a bit in this video because of course, this whole debate, this whole thing about Roe v Wade being overturned is about reproductive organs and what people are allowed to do with their reproductive organs, their bodies, body autonomy. So I think it's only right that we start the conversation, start talking about it in terms of like people's reproductive organs. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of my own personal history in here first. So I'm going to say, let's go back to when I was at primary school, when I was 10 years old, right? So 10-year-old me, I was fighting with my brother one Sunday, play fighting in a park after we'd visited my grandparents' house. Fighting with my brother, just play fighting because he was getting on my nerves, as siblings do. And I suddenly felt like a sharp pain down there. Didn't know what it was. No idea. No clue what it was at all. And the pain continued until we'd left the park and I got home. So when I got home, I went to the toilet, and I saw some blood in my underwear and I didn't know what it was. I was 10 years old, no idea what it was. At that point, we hadn't had any kind of conversation or education in school about, periods or anything like that. No sex education, nothing. We hadn't received anything like that in school at that point in time. And this is going back sort of almost 30 years, right? Almost 30 years ago, when I was a primary school age person, 10 years old, and I got my first period, didn't know what was going on, completely shocked. So of course, I just sort of quickly pulled my underwear up. I went to my mum and I said, "Mum, there's blood in my underwear and I don't know why." At which point, of course, my mum had to have the talk with me about, "Oh wow, you started your period." It was earlier than my mum ever expected. My mum told me that she started her periods at 13. So for me to start it at 10 years old, she thought I was quite young. She didn't realise that I'd be ready for that talk about that then, none of that. Didn't understand. She didn't realise. But, oh well, it happened and she had to have that talk with me, take me through sanitary protection and everything and tell me what was going on with my body. So that was one thing. I went off to school the next day, which was a Monday, and as I was in the bathroom, changing the sanitary pads, I realised there was nowhere for me to dispose of the sanitary pad in the bathroom school. Nowhere at all. No little plastic disposable bin, nothing. no little bin there, nothing. And this is going back, like I say, about 30 years ago, so it's not all that long ago. But I think because it was a primary school, they didn't expect people of that age to be bleeding. I think they thought that most people would start their periods around the age of 12 or 13. But of course, I was the first one in my primary school to start my period at the age of 10. So, during that week, me not knowing how to dispose of the sanitary protection that I was wearing, the used bits, you know, me not knowing how to dispose of any of that, I had a little like plastic carrier bag in my school bag, and I wrapped the sanitary pads up in tissue and stuff and put them in a little bag because I didn't know what to do with them. You know, it was my first period, I was completely new to this, didn't know what to do with them at all, right? So at the end of the week, my mum came to meet me from school, and she saw me like pull this little bag around in my backpack, and she said, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh, well, you know, it's my sanitary pads." And she said, "Why have you got them in your bag? You know, why are you carrying them around with you?" And I was like, "Well, there was nowhere else to put them. There was nowhere to throw them away or anything." And I tell you, she was really shocked at that. Like, really shocked. And it was at that point that my mum came into the school with other parents and other kids there. She came into the school and she looked at all the bathroom stalls. No, there were no bins for sanitary protection at all. None. So my mum then went in, marched in to the little school admin office, and she was like, "Look, my daughter started her period and there's nowhere for her to dispose of, you know, sanitary pads or anything." And the school kind of didn't know how to act. They were like, "Oh," you know, and this whole ordeal, I just remember, you know, being there with other kids and other parents, and I felt so embarrassed. I felt singled out. You know, it was weird being the first person that had had this issue at my primary school. Really, really weird. I felt like an alien or something. So weird. I wanted the ground to fucking swallow me up. Looking back on that whole entire thing, I was mortified at the time. Absolutely fucking mortified, girl. But now I look back at that and I see my mum going into my school and acting like a boss ass bitch, doing what needed to be done, seeing something that needed to be changed, using her voice, speaking about it, and actually getting something done. Like, because after that, after my mum's speech in there, oh girl, we had sanitary bins in the toilet cubicles. And speaking of toilet cubicles, you know, I feel like it's a given that everywhere you go now should have gender neutral toilets. You know, as I've gotten older and realised that I identify as queer and non-binary, it's more important than ever to acknowledge the fact that trans men can still be bleeding too, and you know, they shouldn't have to feel embarrassed or ashamed about their bodily functions and about the fact that they, you know, need somewhere to put their sanitary protection and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? They shouldn't have to feel singled out and embarrassed because of it. You know, they shouldn't have to get funny looks when they go to the bathroom. None of that should be happening in 2022. Absolutely not. Absolutely not, bitch. This brings me back to the whole Roe V Wade discussion and how it affects trans people, particularly trans men and non-binary people, and let's get into it. So I actually went away and did a little bit of my own research. Honestly, it doesn't really take a lot, and I think that is what is frustrating to some trans and non-binary people right now, that they feel they're really not included in the discussion about abortion rights being taken away in some parts of America. You know, it must be frustrating, because if you have a uterus but you don't identify as a woman, yet you're constantly being misgendered, lumped in with women, in this discussion, it's got to be annoying, right? It's got to be really, really fucking annoying. So I went online, like I say, I did a little bit of my own research, and what I actually found out was that in 2019 there was research done by a university in America where they actually found out that 30% of transgender men experience unplanned pregnancy. Now, that could be through something traumatic, or that could just be through sex in a normal relationship. You guys know what I mean? Like, come on, you know. And this is why it's frustrating when people just forget, or people purposely don't include trans men in this discussion. For me, if you don't include trans men in this discussion on purpose, then that's just you being outright transphobic. There are just so many myths and so much misinformation out there about transgender men and pregnancy and when they can and can't conceive, everything like that. So what I found when I was actually looking all this up online last night, what I actually found was that testosterone doesn't act as a contraceptive. It's still possible for a transgender man to get pregnant 6 months, up to 6 months in taking testosterone. So by no means is it a contraceptive that will stop a pregnancy from happening. And this is all why that it's so important that people include trans men in the conversation about abortion rights. Taking testosterone up to the first year doesn't make a trans man sterile, doesn't stop them getting pregnant, and also there's the whole stigma of how they're treated in the healthcare system if they are pregnant. Like, you know, there are a lot of things that can be done from healthcare workers. If you've got a patient who's a transgender male and they're pregnant, you know, it's things like asking pronouns, asking their preferred name, which might not be their legal name, all of that stuff, you know. There's that whole side of it too, you know. So the fact that transgender men are just pretty much being ignored in this whole abortion conversation is insane to me. Also, you've got the fact that if a trans man stops taking his testosterone, then his kind of reproductive cycle will go back to normal within 6 to 12 months. So again, an unplanned pregnancy can happen, just the same as it can with a cis woman. And even with cis women now, there are medical advances which mean a cis woman can have a uterus transplant from either a living or deceased person, and then they can carry a baby up to term and give birth using a womb that's been transplanted. So, like, there's so much that can be done with medicine, with science, and the fact that it's just a lot of people, like I say, who are making a sweeping generalization and just making this whole Roe V Wade overturning discussion all about women, when it's really not the case. As I said, it is a human rights issue, girl. So I'm kind of losing my rag with it, but also I feel like it's important to come here and try and share some of this information and talk about it, you know, without being like in your face angry. I'm just sitting here talking with you guys, you know. I hope that you can at least maybe just learn something from this video, something that you can take away that maybe you didn't know before, you know, because there are things that I didn't know about the experience of a trans man before, you know, but go look it up as I did and you guys will find all of this out. Overall, this video was just about being a little bit more inclusive when we're discussing abortion rights, because so much online, as I said, I've been seeing everybody saying women, women's rights, America trying to take women's rights away, when it's not only affecting women, it's affecting humans as a whole, you know, transgender men, non-binary people and women. So please, if you take anything away from this video, just know that I was only making this video to try and suggest that people be a little bit more inclusive with their language, that people don't, you know, be ashamed of their transphobia if it was things that they didn't know before, if they didn't know that they were being transphobic. But, you know, if you're saying just women on purpose and ignoring trans men in the conversation, then I hate to say it, but yeah, you are being transphobic. So I'm going to stop this little video right here, but please let me know all your thoughts, comments, opinions. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you soon on the next one. Bye.